Well, this is not even remotely how I expected this game to go tonight, as the Minnesota Wild hammer the Florida Panthers 5-1. The top six did a lot of the heavy lifting here tonight. But how about the fact that the Minnesota Wild played a penalty-free game in the year of our Lord 2024? Oh boy, we got a lot to get to here tonight. Let's get that postcast cooking.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-1 win over the Florida Panthers, a game in which they once again never trailed. They get an early lead, they add to it, and they get some good goaltending from Filip Gustavsson. Although, let's be honest, Filip Gustavsson made great saves here tonight. I thought the defense did a really good job of making sure that he wasn't supremely tested. And yes, as John Hynes has discussed throughout the course of the season, there were points where things kind of broke down a little bit, and that's when you need your goalie to be able to make the saves. Whoops, I got the post game on. Sorry. And that's when you need your goalie to make saves, is when play breaks down. But the Wild defense has done a really good job of just keeping things very, very nice and easy for Filip Gustavsson. The Wild top six just put Sergei Bobrovsky in the torture chamber here tonight, as the goal that's going to steal all the highlights is when Kirill skated around the perimeter of the net, pulled Sergei Bobrovsky out of the net, and instead of trying to maybe go for the wraparound goal, he gets the puck to Mats Zuccarello, who just has to sink like a 2-foot birdie putt to be able to come away with the goal. Really a lot to like. And honestly, there is really no phase of the game tonight that didn't look good. Offense just continued to push. We will talk about the answer that the Minnesota Wild gave after the goal by the Panthers, because I thought that was really, really key to this game. First line, second line, just torrential pressure in this one. The defense played great. Gus was great in goal. The Wild were 1 of 2 on the power play, although I don't really count that last power play with 2 minutes, if I'm being honest, because the Wild were just looking to run the clock out. Like if that was a power play in which the Wild needed to score, I feel like they probably would have been able to. But at that point in the game, 2 minutes left, you're just looking to get out of town without anybody getting hurt. And so the Wild were 1 for 2 with an asterisk on the power play tonight. No penalties. And that was something that we keyed in on for the 3 keys to the game, as you probably saw on social media before puck drop. That was one of the things that I keyed in on as a key for this game, literally, was to not get into kind of that agitator standoff between the Florida Panthers and the Minnesota Wild. But the Wild are just not that team. I don't think the Wild are that team anymore. So we'll talk about that a little bit here. But let's get to some of the key numbers in this one. Just looking at and seeing everything on screen. The Panthers did have the edge in shots. Wild were 1 of 2 on the power play. Wild had the face-off edge, which I think was a nice key to being able to consistently keep the Panthers from getting set up in their side of the ice. The hits 46-22, but we were talking about this in the Discord server. It's nice to know that the Wild have the physicality there if they need it, but I am so glad that the Minnesota Wild are not trying to be that team this year. If there was a blueprint for how you win a game that I would love to see the Wild be able to continue, it's this one, because they pushed on offense and they did a really good job of taking advantage of Sergei Bobrovsky, who was not great in net for the Panthers, And they just kept pushing. They kept pushing the issue. They got him chased from the net. And that's a thing that kind of drove me nuts about last year at points, is there were games in which the Minnesota Wild just did not really fully test the goalies that were on the other side of the ice. And so the Wild did that tonight. They chased Sergei Bobrovsky after 2 periods because the top 2 lines did a lot to influence this one tonight. Let's look at our 3 keys to the game. Force one and done possessions. Major check on that one. We talked about it with Armando Velez, host of Locked On Florida Panthers, in our preview of this game. The Florida Panthers were Corsi darlings heading into this matchup. They did a really good job all season of controlling the pace and being able to possess the puck for long stretches of time. And the Corsi numbers for the Minnesota Wild tonight are not, they're on the low side. But again, the Wild made the most of their opportunities throughout the entirety of the game. So A+ for forced one and done possessions. No retaliatory penalties. Didn't go to the box once. That's damn impressive, considering what we've seen from this team over the last few seasons. It really is an impressive turnaround, and I think speaks to what this team is trying to be compared to what they have been in the past. The Wild's no penalties. They are the 3rd fewest penalized team in the entire NHL right now, that's something that just speaks to kind of how they're playing and what they're trying to do. And the top 6 must match the Florida Panthers top 6. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a perfect 3 out of 3 for the 3 keys here for tonight's game. Let's look at some of the notable performances that we see in this one, because we're going to get to a lot of your thoughts for this game, but there's a lot to discuss in this one. You got multi-point efforts from Matt Boldy, who had a goal and an assist, 16:32 of ice time in this one. Him and Joel Eriksson Ek basically identical on the in terms of time on ice. Eriksson Ek had 16:38. He was 9 of 13 in the faceoff circle here tonight, had a goal and an assist. 1 shot on goal. He had 4 hits. He drew 1 penalty in this one as well. Freddie Gaudreau, even 3 shots and 3 hits in this one, 14:42 of ice time. He was above 50% in the faceoff circle, so big props there for Freddie Gaudreau. Marcus Johansson scored his first goal of the season on a glorious feed from Matt Boldy. And guys, we talk about the details, and we have for a large part of the season. That Matt Boldy work on the edges to set Marcus Johansson up for the goal was disgusting. Being able to work the puck around a couple of Panthers players, and he sees that there are 3 Panthers players all in an area, and so he pulls them in as far as he can, gets the feed out to Marcus Johansson, who's ready for the one-timer, and he blasts it past Sergei Bobrovsky. So big key to Marcus Johansson here tonight. He actually led the Minnesota Wild in shots on goal tonight with 4, and he had a hit as well in 14 minutes of play here tonight. Kirill Kaprizov, a monster. 2 assists tonight. He had a block, played 21 minutes. Other notables, Marco Rossi with a goal tonight. He played 16:42 and was 6 of 10 in the faceoff circle. Yakov Trenin, 1 shot on goal. He had 5 hits in 15 minutes, 30 seconds. And look, that third line is still kind of a work in progress. And I think that is one that is going to just evolve as the season unfolds. And, it's interesting because you talk about bringing a guy like Yakov Trenin in here to help provide some oomph and some identity down in the bottom 6. But I think what we're seeing from this Wild team is that they are playing more of a modern style and understanding that you are only as good as the push that your offense provides. And so we're seeing torrential pressure from all four lines throughout the course of the night. Matt Zuccarello, another really good game for him. A goal, an assist, 3 shots on goal. He had a block. He had a takeaway. He played 16 minutes, 42 seconds, and he went 2 of 2 in the faceoff circle. Like, what more can you do? Jonas Brodin had an assist tonight, 3 shots, 2 blocks, 1 hit, 21-32 on the ice. Zach Bogosian, 2 shots, 2 blocks, and a hit. He played 21-02. Brock Faber had 22-57 of ice time. He had a block. He had a hit, was a +2 on the ice. John Merrill, the only, well, other than Jakub Lauko and Liam Ogren, the only player in negative territory tonight. And yeah, that goal that the Florida Panthers scored, Johnny boy. But hey, at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt you again because the Wild got out to the early lead. And so you get to 3-0 before the Florida Panthers score. And then you put 2 more goals up after that because you keep pushing. You keep the attack on. And I think that was probably the part I was most impressed about in this game was the fight after the goal to make it 3-1. We've seen Wild teams in previous seasons where you get it 3-0 and all of a sudden it's 3-1, it's 3-2, and then, oh no, what do you do? But tonight, the Wild were like, nah, we're good. We'll just keep the fight going. We'll keep pushing. Jake Middleton, we got to talk about Midzi tonight. 3 assists. He was a +3, 3 blocks, 20 minutes, 55 seconds of ice time in this one. Michael Russo tweeting out, second really, really strong game for him. And so I think starting to really build some nice chemistry with Brock Faber on that top pairing. So up and down the ice, I mean, Filip Gustavsson tonight, 24 out of 25. The one goal he gave up was an odd man rush. And it was just, what can you do? It's a 2-on-1. It was a neutral zone turnover. And you give up the goal there, but Gus made really good saves, and he just continues a really strong start to the season. So offense, defense, special teams, every unit. This was an impressive win for the Minnesota Wild. And I know the Florida Panthers are missing some key pieces. Matthew Tkachuk coming back in this game after. So I'm confused because I saw mention that Matthew Tkachuk was out with an illness. And all of a sudden now today, it's like, oh, yeah, he's back after a minor procedure. That doesn't sound great. And so you're getting Matthew Tkachuk back into form. Alexander Barkov expected back at some point during this next road trip that the Panthers are going to play. So it's not a Panthers team that's at 100%, but then again, the Wild are not at 100% either. And it's all about going into a road environment and taking control of the game early on and not leaving any doubt. Minnesota Wild did that. Period. End of sentence in this one tonight. They took control of the game early. They left no doubt. They didn't let the Florida Panthers crawl their way back into this at all. This is an impressive win, and this is an impressive continuance of this road trip in which the Wild are 3-0-1 over the first 4 games of this trip. Now, you've got a tough one against Tampa Bay coming up on Thursday, which we'll talk about. You got a weird noon game against the Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday, and then you finish it off with a game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Tuesday. And so it for the Wild, let's just keep it rolling. Like, bank as many points as you can at this point in the season and put yourself as high up in the standings as you can, because I would much rather be in this spot 1,000 times out of 1,000 than what is going to happen with teams like Nashville, teams like Colorado, that now you're going to have to dig out of an early hole to be able to get into the postseason. And we saw it last year. It's not easy. It's not easy to dig out of a hole. I don't care who you have on your team. It's not easy to dig out of an early hole. If you can at least kind of keep yourself around 500, you give yourself a chance. But the moment you start to flounder, that's when all bets are off. So the Wild also now second in NHL history in the amount of time in which they have yet to trail to start a season. And so, keep that going too. Like, you're obviously, and we'll talk about this as we continue, you're obviously not going to go the entire season without trailing. Like, it's just not going to happen. The Wild are going to have games in which they trail. They're going to have games in which they lose. But a big thing that is, I think, different about this Wild team than what we saw last year is the battle level and the fight that they have at this early part in the season and the resiliency. Those are all key things that put you in much better position to be able to dig out of adversity than what we saw last year, where it's like the team played tight every game. And the moment something went wrong, everybody kind of went, "Oh, here we go again." And now what are we supposed to, like, how are we supposed to dig our way out of this now? So there's a lot to like from this game. There's a lot to unpack. There's still a lot of work to be done. Like, this is a perfect example of being impressed with this win, but also acknowledging there's a lot of work to do. We're in game 6 out of 82 in the regular season, but I'm very willing to say this Wild team is off to a much better start than they were last year. Battle level has been there every game, and a lot of the things that we've seen so far are encouraging to the early part of the season. So that's my 10 cents. Let's get to some of the discussion from all of you wonderful listeners. 85 strong joining us after another Minnesota Wild win. An Eastern time zone start, 5:30 start tonight. It's glorious. We're going to be out of here before 10 o'clock. I love it. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep the party going. Let's get to all of your comments and takeaways, because we're going to start a new interactive bit here. I'm going to let all of you pick the 3 stars of the game. And so we'll get to that before we're done here tonight. And Minnesota Wild's come away with a nifty little 5-1 win over the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. And we have way more to get to as we continue tonight's Locked On Wild Postcast after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed as well when you place your first $5 bet. Best part, it doesn't even have to be a winner. If you had the under in tonight's Minnesota Wild game, you still are rolling. So, win or lose, your first $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So head to FanDuel.com right now to take advantage of this great offer. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Tonight's Locked On Wild Postcast also brought to you by Indeed. We are driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Plus, Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Plus, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, we back. We rolling. Minnesota Wilds come away with a 5-1 win over the Florida Panthers. 3 early goals before the Panthers got on the board, and then the Wild scored 2 more times to push things out of reach. So let's get to your comments and thoughts, and I'm going to start with one that I fully echo myself. I know it's a long season, but I'll be the first to admit I was wrong about this season so far. Club is showing very good signs with Gus playing great behind the team. They are proving me wrong. Look, I didn't expect that we would see the team this dialed in through the start of the season. I think it just speaks to a few things. I think it speaks to being way more ready to play this year than they were last year. Part of that, I think, was due to a much more strenuous training camp, and I think a little sense of urgency after not making the postseason last year. And to be now 4-0-2 on the season, having led in every game so far, having never trailed in it for a single second, I think speaks to this team being way more desirable to get off to a good start. And so a good start is only as good as its finish, though. We've seen many iterations of this team through the years: hot starts, cold finishes, cold starts, hot finishes that just don't end up being enough. And so for the Minnesota Wild, just continuing to keep pushing and continuing to do all of these good things that they've done. They're getting good goaltending. They're playing well on special teams. They're not, as is the next key point here, they're playing disciplined hockey, I think, is the biggest thing to see from this team right now, is they're not taking careless penalties. They are engaged. They're dialed in. They're battling along the boards. They're trying to do those little extra things to keep the puck alive, to lead to scoring chances. John Hines preaches details, and a lot of the Wild goals so far this year have been scored because of extra attention to those details. So it's a lot of really good things to like so far for this team. And the key is, how do you battle back from adversity? You know, if you lose 1 or 2 in a row, do you bounce back with a solid effort, or do things kind of start to, go back into a lull mode? That's going to be the key for this team. I think that will be what defines them this season, is how they handle adversity through injury or through, on ice play as well. But so far, they have been locked in pretty much every game that has been played so far this season. As Wild Crush 44 notes, playing great, but I think they will likely drop a game to Tampa Bay with Flower and net. It sounds like the plan is to go Fleury on Thursday and then Fleury against Pittsburgh. Honestly, Filip Gustavsson has played well enough to never be removed from the net. And so the defense is going to have to do a lot of the lifting with Fleury and net against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're going to have to make sure that they keep the avenues clean and they allow Fleury the best opportunity to see the puck coming in from range. We saw what happened against Seattle, and it seemed like every time the Minnesota Wild got that, what we hoped was the knockout punch, the Kraken just came right back and tied it up. And that's really the only game so far in which you feel like you kind of let a point get away. And so it's a tough Tampa Bay team. They are mule kicking the whoever they're playing tonight, the New Jersey Devils, I think it is. They're winning by a margin right now. Oh, it's 8-5. Oh, gross. So yeah, they were mule kicking the New Jersey Devils. It was 6-2 at one point, but both teams going to just continue to not play, not have good goaltending. And Andrei Vasilevsky started last night. He got torched. So now the backup's in tonight, which means Vasilevsky will play likely on Thursday. So Fleury's going to have to be on his game to help keep this going. And we'll see what the Wild do to help him out as well. Amanda, this was a solid, worry-free game, setting the tone. Everyone had some really positive work to be done, and I think there are still areas that can keep getting more and more solid throughout the year. I fully agree. Like it feels like on offense that chemistry is going to continue to grow and build for this team. And so getting these wins early and, being able to rely on two top lines to do most of the heavy lifting, that's great. That depth scoring is going to be what really helps this team kind of take things to that next level. And so when you get the third and the fourth lines contributing, and I still think there are going to be some juggling done in those third and fourth line combinations. And so I don't think those line combos are settled as of now. I thought Foligno, Huznadinov, and Trenin, I thought they played with some nice bounce over the last few games. But at the end of the day, it might be that you just need to split up Yakov Trenin and Marcus Foligno to be able to really make those two lines gel. That's kind of what I'm thinking is the plan going forward, is that you're just going to need to give that a try. But those bottom two lines still work in progress. Top two lines pretty dialed in at this point, and so that's really good to see. Hoptics joining us tonight. Love the postcast. Well, guess what? I love bringing them to you, and we've got 74 strong here after a pretty convincing win. We love to see that, and so appreciate everybody continuing to hop in and join us here after games. Creepy Colors, great game. Urban, absolutely throttled by the Wild. That is, of course, the Florida Panthers. Nathan, too. Hines has the guys playing well and no penalties. I can't remember the last time the Wild had a penalty-free game. I really can't, because last year I think they were top 10 in penalty minutes. 2 years ago they were top 3. And the year before that I think they were top 5. So it's something we have come to expect, is that this team is just going to commit a ton of penalties. But I'm going to give credit to John Hines for cleaning some of that up in the early part of the season. Is just, I heard him say something during the or was mentioned during the broadcast that he made a comment that guys aren't allowed to pinch. And so I think that Hines has come in and has really helped settle some of that down here in the early goings. Can the Wild keep it going? I don't see any reason that this can't continue, but they're going to have to keep it going as the competition starts to really ramp up. Sandell, we own Florida. Spot the lie. The Wild beat Florida both times last year, and now they beat the Panthers here again to start this off. Tracy, not that I doubted the Wild before the game. I expected a lot more from Florida. Love the results. And this is how you blindside a team at their barn, is you hop on them early and you don't give them any time to think about it. You make it 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and before they even have time to blink, it's over. So that was a big key to the win tonight, is just jumping on the Panthers before they had any time to react. And the Wild did a really good job of that. There was a little push by the Panthers in the second, but the Wild stormed back after the Panthers made it 3-1. And, they took control of this one pretty easy. Hoptics, hey, remember when a whole bunch of you were already giving up on the season before it started, saying Hines was a bad coach? Where did all of you run off to? Now, again, it is early, but full credit to the team for putting themselves in good position to pick up wins here early on in the season. Mike, look at penalty minutes for the Wild. They're playing disciplined, and that covers up for the weak penalty kill. I think a couple of things that have led to the penalty kill numbers being better here so far. I mean, and again, 75% in the season, but the penalty kill has not been tested a ton. The Wild were, entering tonight, the third fewest penalized team in the entirety of the NHL. Just looking to see if that's changed, because no penalties tonight might mean that the Minnesota Wild have dropped a little further in that regard. All right, let's see here. ESPN penalty minutes. Utah Hockey Club is still on top with 85 through 6 games. The Minnesota Wild, 24 now through 6 games. The New York Islanders have 20, and the Winnipeg Jets, 18 through 5 games so far this season. And so just not being tested. And I talked about this before the season even started as something that I think was a broader issue that needed to be addressed, was the team taking too many penalties, and they've taken it to heart. And I love that. And that's just it's a good start to the season. Solid game. Bus looking good. Going to have 2 screens going Thursday night. You know I will. Minnesota Vikings playing Thursday night football as well. Another Eastern time zone start for the Tampa Bay Lightning game. 6 o'clock Central Time. Not doing postcasts after 10 p.m. I love that. So yeah, it's going to be a 2-screen. It's going to be a 2-screen Thursday as we watch the Wild take on the Lightning. Middleton has looked pretty solid. Yeah, he has been I think really, really good with Brock Faber. That pairing struggled last year, but I think Middleton has improved his play this year. There are a lot of guys that just seems like have been playing with a lot more urgency to start the season, and I'll put Middleton in that group as kind of those complementary players that are really making sure that they step up to help this team win early on. Matt Zuccarello is a big one, and his play so far this year has been a huge reason as to why this team's off to the start they are. Marcus Johansson has had some good contributions over these first few games of the season. So I think you're seeing these complementary players understand the assignment, and the play has just been better. And I think the Wild doing a lot of the little things has made a big difference as to why they are where they are. It very well could have been 10-1 had the Panthers kept Sergei Bobrovsky in. Sergei Bobrovsky had a nice, neat, and tidy little negative .309 goals saved above expected. Let me refresh this and see where the Minnesota Wild ended up, or where Filip Gustavsson ended up, I should say. Because the Panthers just didn't get a ton of good looks. Okay, so the Panthers had an expected goals of 2.006. So Filip Gustavsson giving up 1 goal. He was at 1.01 goals saved above expected. So he continues to be in positive territory every game this year, and he has basically saved the Wild a goal every game he's been in net, which is a sensational number so far. And on the other end, Sergei Bobrovsky, minus 3.06 goals saved above expected. Yeesh. Credit to the Wild for keeping the push going, though. There's not a lot a goalie can do when you are just tearing at them with torrential pressure, and the Wild did that here tonight. Despite going full glam and getting a nose job, Joel Eriksson Ek still a grinder. He's already ditched the face shield, and it's just he's ready to just keep mucking it up. He drew a penalty tonight, first time that I think the officials have said, hey, maybe Joel Eriksson Ek doesn't commit all the penalties that happen in the area he's at, and so that was really good to see. This team's looking good? ? Yes, Jake. It's a good start. It's a good start for the Wild here so far this season. Now you got to keep it going, but it's been a good start for sure. Like, I'm not going to take any credit away. They beat the teams that they were supposed to early on, and now they've picked up a win against a playoff team. And they picked up, let's not overlook that Winnipeg game too. Second night of a back-to-back. Those are tough conditions. Picked up a point. Got that game to overtime and picked up a point. So the fact that the Wild, and I suppose you can throw Seattle in the playoff contention as well. And so you have 4 of a possible 6 points against playoff teams. If you put the Blues in that category, it's 6 out of 8. So far, they've been doing what they need to do. The key will be, can they keep it going? Hoptics. Only 2 times I've ever seen a team not get a single power play was last year against the Blues, and also a couple of years ago against the Blues during the playoffs. It's always the Blues. It's always the GD Blues. Great game from everyone tonight. Freddie's going to score on Thursday. Count it. I like that. That is an official call here. We'll mark that down. We'll see what happens. Kirill's 4th multi-point game. Yeah, Kirill must have listened to the show that I did wondering about, and I phrased it as modest starts. And I mostly was just looking at it, just a weird statistical oddity for him. That the month of October, the numbers just are lower than the other months of the season. But dude is dialed. He is dialed in to start the season, which is just fantastic to see. Brian joining us. Perfect road game. All 3 zones disciplined. 100% a great game here tonight. And so that is really good to see. Just continues a great trend for this team so far. Got a couple of starred comments that I want to get to here in this one. Let's start with Anita. Was anything said about Hartman? So here's the deal with Hartsey. Hartman is dealing with an injury. He was out of the lineup against Columbus, out of the lineup tonight, as far as I understand, day-to-day at this point, and will get back in the lineup once the conditions improve. But just like you'd expect with other injuries, pretty tight-lipped about it at this point in the season. So I would imagine, if not against Thursday, probably on Saturday or Tuesday for Hartman to return to the lineup. But unless I know the injury, I can't really definitively weigh in at this point in the season. Let's go to Bob. Didn't someone say Gus has a hip injury most of last season? He looks fly right now. He seems so much more plugged in. There was an injury at some point. And quickly to pop back in. Hartman is traveling with the team, so it's not something that is bad enough to like keep him home. It just at this point is it's just something that he's dealing with, I guess, at this point in the season. So Filip Gustavsson, he did get hurt last year. I think the big key, and this is something that Denny has pointed out, I think the big key is that he came in way better shape, which has allowed him, I think, to move better in the crease and around the net. And so it's probably a 1-2 combo here, healing up after getting hurt last year and just coming in better shape, ready to rock, ready to roll, I think is a huge, I think that's the 1-2 punch. That's the magic sauce that has led to Filip Gustavsson getting off to the start that he is. That's massive for this team so far. Defense, Matthew. This defense is going to be insane if Spurge can keep healthy. So the reports on Jared Spurgeon are that he is skating on his own right now with the hope that he'll join on the back half of the trip. But here's the problem, is you have 3 games left on the road trip. Tampa, Philly, and Pittsburgh. So you're running out of time. And I hope he comes back, but this is now, like, if from the sounds of it, it's a soreness and kind of a pain management thing. And the fact that now this is game 6 after playing in the first 2, this is now 4 games off after 2 games on. And if it's going to be like that, if it's going to be like this the whole season, that's a problem. You have to figure out some way to make this work, because as mentioned here, if Spurgeon can't make it work, that's a valuable, that's $7.575 million is valuable, especially if you make a little push this season and you're in a playoff position. Like, look, I'm getting way ahead of myself here because Vancouver is beating Chicago right now. But $7.57 million, if you're willing to give up prospects and picks to do it, that could go get you Brock Besser. That's how big of an impact that cap space can have if Jared Spurgeon can't get back and get healthy. And that is sizable. That's a sizable impact that can have on your season. Because if this continues, you would be, I think, showing Kirill Kaprizov a good show of faith by saying, West is kind of wide open. We're one of those teams right in it. Let's go get somebody. Let's go get somebody and turn ourselves into a wagon at the top. And so that you can't just do nothing with it. Because it's too much money. And Michael Russo was asked about this on Twitter. He said the reason that the Wild haven't done anything yet is because they don't get cap relief. You don't get cap relief if you put somebody on injured reserve. You do if you put them on long-term injured reserve, but the Wild haven't needed the roster spot yet. You cannot go through the entire season just having that money on your bench, not doing anything. So Bill Guerin, John Hines, the entire rest of the management team, they got to figure out a plan here. You got to figure out a plan of how to either manage this so that Spurgeon can get into games, or use that money to get somebody. Is kind of where I'm at with things right now. So we'll see how that plays out here as the season goes on. Mason joining us tonight. Watching Foligno and Trennan is a hard watch, which is why I kind of am of the belief that probably split them up at this point, and go one on the third, one on the fourth. I think the fact that Murat Huznadinov can center that line and the speed can be noticeable, probably says a little something. And so there's nothing wrong with having those guys play on the third and the fourth lines. That probably gives you a little additional protection. So I feel like that bottom six is a work in progress. And because the top six has been mostly good so far this year, you haven't had to really look at making changes there. But at some point they will make some they'll make some tweaks. They'll make some tinkering before this we get too far in. Matthew, what does the contract for Spurgeon look like? That's a great question that I think was already answered in the chat, but I'm pulling Puckpedia up anyway because I wanted to anyway. Jared Spurgeon's contract, he is on the books through the 2026-2027 season. So it's this year, it's 2025, 2026, and 2026, 2027 is the Spurgeon deal. That's what's left on there. And he has a 10-team no-trade list each of those seasons. And so we've moved out of the full no move into the no-trade list. So this is, I'm telling you, like, this is going to be a major storyline the rest of the season. Because it's not nothing. It's a massive chip. And if Spurgeon is able to be in the lineup and impactful, it's, he can help out on defense, but if not, like, $7 million $7.5 million can go get you basically whoever you want outside of the obvious names. So it's a massive chip for this team. And especially if this season continues to go like it has. Like Brock Besser's just one name. Probably not going to be available if Vancouver continues how they are doing, but there will be other names out there. You can go get somebody. You can put them on. You can put them on your books. And if Jared Spurgeon is available and ready by the time the season is done, you can just slap him right back on, because guess what? No cap in the postseason. We learned that from Vegas. So this is going to be a huge storyline for this team. I've beleaguered it a lot. It's going to be a big storyline for this team as the season unfolds. Is Fleury in Tampa official from a credible source? If by credible source you mean Michael Russo, then yes. I got to find it because he tweeted something about it. I'll find it. He tweeted something about getting Fleury some work before the Pittsburgh game, because Fleury's going to start the Pittsburgh game. And so it sounded like he's going to start the Tampa game as well. Let's just see if we find it here. Of course not. Boy, this is really awkward as I scroll Twitter. Okay, here we go. Filip Gustavsson starts tomorrow for the Minnesota Wild, i.e. today. Sounds like Marc-Andre Fleury plays in Tampa. This will get him a start before his final game in Pittsburgh next week. So that's about as official as you can get. So Fleury Thursday, Fleury Tuesday, Gus on Saturday against the Flyers is, I would assume, how that's done. But time I guess will tell. Yeah, and I think there are a lot of comments in here about Zeev Buium and making sure that there's enough room to get him on the roster. I don't think that'll be an issue, because as of right now, with Yesper not on, they can call somebody up, as needed, and they're going to go the exact same route. I'm super confident that the Wild are going to go the same route with Zeev that they did with Brock Faber, and just ELC him the moment his season is done. And he'll be here. I'm not really as worried about that as the season plays on. If Spurgeon comes back and then has to take another healing process break, he should really consider retiring. Just can't take several games off in a row all season. Sure, he'll get some transparency. Sure, we'll get some transparency by mid-November on what the deal is. They're going to have to. It's a great point by Hoptics. They're going to have to, because as I said, you can't just carry that on your books and pretend that it's not there. Because if it's going to be something that he's not able to help you this year, you really should take the opportunity to go get somebody that can. Because we don't talk about this a ton, but this is a farm system that is built to handle a big trade. Not all these prospects are going to make it to the NHL level. And so it could be potentially, because, we talk about this too. Think about this. Try this on for size. There's all this talk in the 5-year plan by Craig Leopold and by Bill Guerin about getting somebody in free agency next year. If you LTIR Spurgeon, you could go get that person right now and then just add them onto the books next season by signing them to an extension. So it could have a massive impact. If you go get somebody for your top 6 that is a more impactful scorer for that top 6, that's the kind of thing that can really, really make some noise for you this season. Because let's just look at the names amongst the teams that are off to really, really bad starts. I mean, there are a lot of names out there that you can go grab, and somebody that could, not just like, hey, let's get somebody to play in our bottom six. You got enough of those guys. You can go get somebody that can score you some goals. Why are they treating Fleury like a make-a-wish? I guess we're taking L's in Tampa and Pittsburgh. I mean, look, we all have seen what we've seen from Gus so far. I mean, I feel like if you put Gus in for both of those games, you probably win them. But at the end of the day, you can't. Gus can't start every game. But maybe if it were me, maybe you start Yesper against a atrocious Philadelphia team. And you go Gus against Tampa. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. But this is correct from Brandon. You don't want to burn Gus out. Like, games right now, it's great that he's been able to get the Wild off to a good start. The games that are going to matter are in January, February, and March. So making sure that you don't burn him out, that's a very good point. Let's go to the dude 9210. Is the lack of right shot defenseman depth in the organization concerning? Spacek isn't exactly primed for the NHL at this moment. This is part of something that I think I'm going to have to dive more into myself. Is I just don't, it all depends just on how you kind of slot people into the lineup. But you look at it right now, and you've got Zach Bogosian and Brock Faber and Jared Spurgeon as the right shot defenseman on this team. Everybody else a lefty. I think the big key here is making sure that some of those defensive prospects pan out and are able to help you. And then you figure out the right shot, left shot, depending on who they're playing with. But I'm more interested to see how those prospects do in Iowa this year to put themselves in position to make the team next year or the year after that, or it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Key distinction from Trav: if players retire before their contract runs out, there's cap recapture penalty. We want Spurgeon on LTIR, not retirement. We want that LTIR relief. We want that piece, that chip for this season. Fleury showed at the end of last year that he's capable. What's changed? And it's one bad start. But the thing that I worry about is the fact that he's 39 years old. And at this point, we've taught this is a great point by Brandon. It takes Fleury a little bit of a lather to get going. But with how Gustavsson has played, you really can't pull him out of the net. So we'll see. I mean, if it doesn't work out, we'll certainly talk about it, but it's like it feels like he has always been a guy that needs to get in a rhythm. And I would just keep, I don't know. It's early. These are the problems that these are the things that we discuss at this point in the season at 4-2 through the first 6. Minnesota Wild PR dropping this little nugget. The Minnesota Wild committed 0 penalties in tonight's 5-1 win at Florida, becoming the first team in the NHL to post a penalty-free game this season. Minnesota has now played 14 penalty-free games in franchise history, last doing so April 7th at Colorado. And this little nugget. Minnesota Wild goaltender Filip Gustavsson, 4-0-1, now leads the NHL with a .952 save percentage, is tied for first in the NHL at wins, and ranks second with a 1.40 goals against average. Chef's kiss. Wonderful work by Marc-Andre Fleury so far this season. Let's get to this one from Matthew. This is a massive step in the right direction to keep Kaprizov around. If they can compete in the playoffs before opening that cap up next season, this team could be a wagon. It's going to be really interesting to see how this roster looks next season, because we know that you're adding in the Middleton extension. You've got Trennan on the books. You've got Brock Faber's deal starts up next year. But here's the thing to keep in mind about all of these contracts. So Kirill has a no movement clause. And obviously, unless something absolutely blows up, you're not looking to move him. But Marcus Foligno has a no move that goes to a modified 15-team no trade in 2026-2027. Ryan Hartman next year has a 15-team no trade list, but it's not a no move. It's a no move this year, but it's a no trade next year. Freddie Gaudreau is a 15-team no trade both these next two seasons. And so we talk about all of these extensions being mostly immovable. It's not impossible. It's not impossible to move these guys. It's something that you're going to have conversations about, but it's something that as players get added into this mix, as Danila Yurov gets added into the mix, as Liam Ogren gets added into the mix, as Zeev Boyum gets added into the mix, the Minnesota Wild are not going to and I know there's kind of this tendency to, well, you gotta play players to give them opportunities to look the part. There's a learning curve for every player. And some guys like Matt Boldy just hit the ground running. Some guys like Brock Faber hit the ground running. Sometimes it takes you a season. It took Marco Rossi 19 games, and it didn't look like it was going to work. He goes down to Iowa, works on a few things. He comes up last year, looks great. He's off to a better start this season. It takes every player a different amount of time to get acclimated to the NHL level. And so I think that is one of the reasons we've seen all of these no move and no trades, is because these vets will be here until those prospects are ready. And sometimes that's just what it takes to convince a team or to convince a player to come play for you, because every single person on this earth knows that the Wild are dealing with the Parise and Suter mess. Every single person. And so you know that you're going to a team that is behind the 8 ball. And sometimes you just got to offer a little more for them to come be part of the party. So, and what do we know? What do we know about Bill Guerin? Is that he's not afraid to make moves. He has never been afraid to make moves, whether they are moves that we agree with or not. He's never been afraid to go make something happen. And so once those guys are ready, they are, I feel, going to get the opportunities to show it. Let's talk about this one. How concerned are you about Yesper's rough start in Iowa? A couple of, frankly, just yuck games to start the season for Yesper. But I want to talk about something that John Hines said to Michael Russo in regards to the situation. But again, I just have to find it. I don't know why I didn't just keep it up. Listen to this quote from John Hines about Jesper's start to the season. Obviously, with the road trip right now, we still have almost a week now where he's going to be able to get back in the net down there. And then when we come back off the road trip, I think we'll reassess it. But no, it's not necessarily the fact that they had a rough start and he was in those games. It doesn't change our plans for that. It's something he's got to go through again, right? But get back in the net and have a good week of practice. Come back in and play again, and that's what you want. And he's a young goalie, and he's a hell of a goalie. He's had a great training camp. He and the team hit a little bit of adversity, but that's the other thing you want to see is what's the dig in and what's the response to that. And I think they got Milwaukee coming up and they got Texas. So they've got two good teams in the American League coming in. So that's a great thing for him. And it's not so much what has happened. It's what the response is this week. I love that. I know we had some reservations about John Hynes coming into this season. That's a fantastic answer because that is one part of the puzzle, I think, and not that this was intentionally done by the Minnesota Wild, but I think that's one part of the puzzle that this is allowing the team to test Yesper on right now because you're going to get up to the NHL level and a lot of times your performance is based off of what's going on in front of you. It's not always going to go according to plan. And Yesper battled. He put himself in really good position to make the team coming out of camp. It didn't happen. I mean, he made the team, but he didn't get into game action. You know what I'm saying? How do you respond from that? How do you handle adversity? That's something that I think is so critical to young player performance is when things don't go according to plan, how do you respond from it? That quote is fantastic. I love that the organization is focusing on that with a lot of these young players. Liam Ogren was very critical about his own performance early on in the season. John Hynes talked about this in the preseason is, we just want guys to go out there and make plays. And this, is another perfect quote is it's not all going to go according to plan. How do you move on from that? Go have a great week of practice and go get back in the net and try to do better than your performance in those last two games. And I don't know that was all on Yesper in those two Iowa games. I think the team kind of, especially in that game against the Barracuda, I think they kind of wilted a little bit. But, that's the big takeaway that I have from that is that John Hynes wants to see how Yesper responds. I do too. So I'm not super concerned at this point. I just want to see kind of how the body of work evolves over the course of the season. If it's a little rough to start, but then finishes strong, that'll be the encouraging sign that I take from Jesper's body of work this year. Could maybe do something for Rasmus Anderson out of Calgary. It's a good name to keep in mind. I like that. We'll as we get closer. I want to get to about the 20 game mark though, before we really dive into okay, what is this year's team? That's the big benchmark for me is where is this team at 20 games? We'll have a much better idea as to kind of what to expect when we get to that point. Through 6 games, pretty encouraging, but there are 14 left to kind of get to that point. I don't know what word I was looking for, but yeah. Let's say here. I've seen a lot of comments about Denny, and as far as I know, some internet issues are happening at least at this point, and so we're looking to do the live show tomorrow night with Denny to talk about some of the things that we were going to on Monday. Obviously, couldn't with we didn't want to try to do a live show on Monday and have the internet issues really eat into that. So we'll see where things are at. We'll keep you posted. And I figured it was just easier to reschedule that recording than to do a new one. So the plan is tomorrow night at 8, but we'll keep you posted as to where we're at with that come tomorrow. But yeah, we got some good stuff for you. Denny's got some great stuff for you for that live show. So be looking forward to that. I think at this point, I think that was a perfect way to wrap our Locked On Wild postcast here for tonight. Minnesota Wild come away with a 5-1 win. But before everybody goes, let me know your 3 stars of the night. I know there were a couple of comments earlier in the chat, but just throw them in right now. Your 3 stars of the night for the Minnesota Wild here this evening. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to let you pick them. I'm going to let the audience pick them. So let me know. Amanda going with Kaprizov, Middleton, and Gus in this one. I like that trio. Very solid work for all 3 of them here in this one tonight. And so we got Gus, Midzi, and Kirill. Gus, Rossi, and Lizard. I think we got Gus, Rossi, Middleton. Gus, Middleton, insert whoever you want. It was one of those nights where a lot of people had really good ones. Gus, Rossi, Kaprizov, Gus, Zuccarello, Midzi, Gus, Zucchi, Kirill. A lot of good choices. I think Gus for sure, and looks like we got Kaprizov love. We got Rossi love. I like that. I think it was some really good performances from those guys. Midzi, Rossi, Kirill, Gus, and Johansson. I like some love for JoJo tonight. Ron's going with Gus, Brodin, and Midzi. Gus, Kaprizov, Zuccarello. Team effort. I love that. So yeah, 5-1 win here tonight. Mule kick to the Stanley Cup champions here in their own barn tonight. But tough test coming up against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday. We'll have you for that. Be doing a postcast for that. Oh, post-game MVP. Appreciate that. We'll have you covered for Thursday's game too, and I'm gonna rattle this around a little bit. We'll see if SodaPod's doing one, but watch party on Saturday. We'll see. Think about that. We'll maybe put it into the works. But Bob is right. Smash the like button before you head out here for this evening. We'll put a poll in the community tab as to if we should do a watch party on Saturday. It's a noon game, so it's kind of a weird time. We'll put that in the community tab. We'll let you vote. But for tonight, Wild pick up a big 5-1 win over the defending Stanley Cup champions. They'll try to do it again on Thursday. We'll have the 3 things for John Hines post-game presser here tonight for you tomorrow. And got a couple of other things that I think I'm going to dive into here a little bit as well over the course of the week. So appreciate everybody joining us here tonight. Always fun. Always a good time breaking down the game, win or lose. More wins these days, which I like. But we'll have you covered with the next one. So make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit that like button so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Enjoy the rest of your night. Minnesota Wild make it a winner. 5-1 over the Panthers. We got more episodes coming for you the rest of the week right here on Locked On Wild.
You are Locked